Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Boy, is my mic quiet. There we go. That's a little bit better. Welcome once again to Full Fat Spoiler Chat, the show where we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, a wonderfully randomly rolling around number of folks at Nerd Caliber, look at a recent piece of entertainment and review it in depth, talking about things like what worked, what didn't work, what was good, what was bad, theme, message, tone, etc., which means we spoil the heck out of it. And if you hadn't seen from all of the stuff that's out there, tonight's show is Raya and the Last Dragon, the movie that recently premiered. If you have Disney Plus and want to spend extra money on Disney Plus. Now, great big elephant in the room. Given the topic of tonight's show, Raya and the Last Dragon, with an almost entirely Asian American, Asian Canadian cast, completely built around and set around Southeast Asian mythology. We can't not talk about what happened 2 days ago in the greater Atlanta area. I don't think it will be a surprise to any of you who are regular viewers of our show to understand or to acknowledge that we don't tolerate hatred against any group of people, racism and so on here at Nerd Caliber. All nerdery, all cosplay, all aspects of nerddom are open to everybody. We're all welcome. Everybody of any particular persuasion or influence that you can think of, belongs wherever they want to be, and that includes in nerddom. So obviously, our hearts go out to the victims, their families. We are disturbed and disgusted by the shooter, and we would like to encourage people to help out in any way they can, even if it's just to get yourself better informed about the wave of anti-Asian hate that's been growing since the start of this pandemic. That's always been there and been pretty strong, but has been really growing since the start of this pandemic. So in various chats right around now, in YouTube, on Twitch, on Facebook Live, this is a wonderful piece of information, an informational resource, links to where you can help, where you can donate to assist. Please check it out. Even if you already are deeply committed to the idea that this is something that needs to stop, it doesn't hurt to get more information. Full credit, I got this from Yaya Han's Twitter account, where she had posted it after posting individually dozens of places to help. She found this wonderful card.co resource, and please do check it out. I think I speak for all of us here when we say this needs to stop. So, having said that, I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook, Burley_adopter on Twitter. With me tonight to talk about this maybe wonderful, okay, I almost, kind of wonderful movie. We're going to start with my twin off to the side here. Greg, if you would introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rodney 2.0, aka Rodney's doppelganger. Longtime associate editor, photographer, contributor for Nerd Caliber. Just want to echo what Rodney said. I've been a Japanophile since I was a little kid. I studied Japanese in high school and college. I've got Asian friends all over the country in multiple different locations around the world, doing what I can to reach out to people, not just after today or this week, because this is just kind of culminating a lot of what's been building up, but just not to dive too deep into this, but I have Korean friends in New York that are afraid to leave their homes because the racist attacks have become so prevalent. So anything people can do to get better information, help fight the tide of this. Um, it's bad and it's gotten worse. Yeah, there we go. How about that to throw to whoever's next?
Uh,
Byron, if you would.
all right. Much like hi guys, Byron McNeil, aka Byron D0, and much like Greg, lifelong Japanophile. Uh, did do my share of Japanese studies. Um, I live in like the second biggest Cambodian population in America, Lowell, Massachusetts, and made so many made I've met like thanks to conventions and thanks to and just my studies, I've made so many awesome Asian friends, and I am just so heartbroken that this happened, and like any of this happened, just especially since the pandemic. Like I don't want to go on too long about this, but we're better than this. We are so much better than this, and I think I think this talking about this movie is going to be a great way to like just show our respect for various Asian cultures and just our love for the community.
And Manny.
Hello, my name is Manny Ortiz. I'm the founder and co-owner of No Caliber. Um, Thank you everyone for watching this. It's hard to me to speak because I'm still very emotional about what's going on. But I implore anyone watching this to definitely check out that link and support your Asian brothers and sisters in this country.
I'm going to post that link again into YouTube. For some reason, the link itself is not showing up, Greg. I'm wondering if that's because you don't have the. Um, yeah, it needed to be posted by me. Otherwise, the links just get disappeared if
Okay.
in YouTube if somebody else posts them. Um, so, folks, again, check those out. The links are up on all the sites now. Welcome to the show, Cartoon Cat, Fernanda Santos, Vertus Williams, Asher Todoroki, Geniel Perez, and Harry Brady. Welcome back to the show.
Come
Um,
on.
so, what we usually do, we're going to do this as standard format. I'm going to start off talking about where this came from, what the background of this particular piece of intellectual property is. Then we're going to move right into a round robin of, good, bad, likes, dislikes, work, didn't work. Then we go into themes, messages, tone, and so on, and then wrap up with, overall general impressions. So to start with, this is an original IP. It's not based on anything in particular. It was ultimately the writing credit is Keen Wen and Adele Lim, so written by two people of Asian background. Um,
Already better than Mulan.
Although the directors are Don Hall and Carlos Lopez Estrada, Estrada might be a Filipino name, don't know. Um, and the cast is almost entirely, like I said, Asian American, Asian Canadian, with the kind of surprising and wonderful exception of Alan Tudyk as Tuk Tuk. Once again, Alan Tudyk playing a sidekick that just sort of makes really silly noises, which he's awesome at.
That's his
Um,
niche.
yeah, exactly. And that's it. There was, it is 100% wholly originally developed in house, not based on a book or any other previous work. Strongly influenced by some, and we'll get to that later. Um, so, having said that, because there's not a whole lot of background to go in here, let's start with, I'm going to go around the other way this time. I'm going to start with Manny. And Manny, tell us what you liked about it, what you didn't like, what worked for you, what didn't, and so on.
I would definitely say right now that this movie is probably uh, one of the best Disney movies that's come out in for some time. Although I yeah, better, like definitely better than I like this much better than Soul, much better. Wow, yeah, then but it's just something about it like really worked for me. Animation's superb, first of all. It's just everything's so good. All the details and everything from hair to sand to water is just magnificent. Um, Uh, the voice acting was great. Uh, it's a really almost a almost a perfect Disney animation piece. Um, uh, I mean, it's easier to try to it's or actually not easier. I would say it's much more difficult to try to find fault in it, and even the faults to me, it's not like a big deal, you know. Um, uh, uh, which it's not many. I mean, the only thing that maybe irked me a little bit is that in the beginning I kind of saw that she was gonna get betrayed in the beginning, and I saw that way coming. I feel like that scenario I've seen over and over again in different things.
Yep.
Um, I was surprised by the ending though. I I figured it was gonna be that yeah, I knew I mean, she did betray them at the end again, sort of. But I thought it was going to be that she's going to tell her mother, and then all those soldiers will be there, and then they're going to get captured, and then she's going to have a change of heart, and then someone would have escaped. That one didn't realize to come back and save them. And I thought it was going to end very formulaic, but it didn't. Not really, you know. The message is really good. Um, yeah, I mean, I wish I could say more, but it's just really good.
There you go. If that's all you can say about it, that's fine too. Um,
Got a
By-
tight five there, Manny.
exactly. Byron, same
Okay.
questions.
I definitely shared a lot of Manny's sentiments. I I love the fight choreography so much. Like every single movie was I'm just like woo! I'm just like doing it with the screen because I'm a
Byron and
dork like
I,
that.
former martial arts students, and we same thing, feel the same thing.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
Greg too. All right, Greg too.
oh yeah, and I again the nods of Southeast Asian culture, which I feel pop culture doesn't give enough love to. It was great. I'm sure that a number of my friends out here in Lowell definitely loved it too. Um, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. Great work by Gemma Chan and Kelly Tran because I love both of those ladies to death.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say my only real complaint. Um, this is something that I picked up from one of my favorite YouTubers, Redis 101. He talked about the idea of trauma and forgiveness in it because in a sense what happened to Raya was very traumatic and the movie kind of geared it towards her forgiving way too easily and anyone who's ever experienced a any kind of trauma, be it the betrayal of a friend or whatever, you don't forget you're not obligated to forgive someone that easily and it wasn't a deal breaker, definitely, and it didn't really enjoy. But much like Manny, it didn't. It made it near perfect for me.
If I may add real fast,
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna save that point that Brian was talking about at the end because the that was one thing I've been debating about is the idea of forgiveness and the themes about it in this movie. Because I was thinking the same thing. Like, all right, it's sort of it's trying to teach us like we should. You know, the way that humanity can be better is we all or work together despite if we harmed each other. And I don't know. I don't know if that's a good message. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still debating.
Yeah, it's not a cut and dry lesson,
Hmm.
but nothing in life really is. And it like yes, anyone who's ever held a grudge, you know how corrosive that can be. So especially in these times, it's important to reinforce that lesson.
Okay, and Greg.
Um, Echoing a lot of the same points Manny and Byron have made. Um, Animation was absolutely gorgeous. I loved the bright, saturated color palette. Um, I, we're doing Snyder Cut of Justice League next week, right?
Correct.
So, obviously not talking about that at all, but what a contrast in tone, like visual tone. Um, the sort of the sprawling breadth of it was fantastic. Raya was a good character. I didn't think she was a great character. Um, I had to kind of take how would I put this? Like unfocus my eyes a little bit and ignore the Disney. Here's the Disney beats that have to happen in a Disney movie.
Yep.
Manny, to your point though, I mean, the end was the end. You saw it coming, but it was enough of a variation and a twist on it that I did not see coming that kind of kept it from being as formulaic as it might have been. Um, it was definitely very funny. Um, the stuff that I found a little bit less endearing, I think it would have worked a little better if it hadn't been quite so pan Asian. If it had focused more on, it's a fictitious land, but it was very much a melting pot of, um, Khmer and Malaysian and Japanese and Chinese, and I thought that kind of, it lacks some specificity. I think it would have worked better if it had been all in China or all in Cambodia or all in Vietnam, or not all, but the visual scope was a little bit more
something more definitive.
Yeah,
a little
I
bit
just
more focused.
according to articles in which the writers were quoted, all of the influences are Southeast Asian. There's no China, there's no Japan. It's 100%,
Sure.
Southeast Asian according to them. And they list the countries and regions that they incorporated elements into. So,
good point. That definitely was not. I mean, it's hard to see, an animated Asian movie with sword fighting and not think of anime, which is traditionally Japanese. But you're right; it wasn't. They weren't using katana. They weren't wearing traditional. There was no oni flying around.
Right.
So I mean, it was a huge step forward from the kind of slapdash, caricaturish Agrabah in Aladdin, or the Incan Empire in Emperor's New Groove. I mean, radically
or the hodgepodge that was Mulan,
or the hodgepodge of Milan, etc. So huge step forward. I love that the writers and the creative people behind it didn't just draw on their own Vietnamese American experience. They went to Vietnam. They went to Cambodia. They traveled extensively throughout Southeast Asia to eat the food, to talk to the people, to look at the artwork, to look at the weapons, and really draw all of that direct experience into the look of the movie, the dialogue, the scenery, etc. I could have done without the extended exposition at the beginning that almost lost me, like that long, kind of dry, here's everything you need to know, and then 5 or 8 minutes later we meet our heroine.
Yeah.
But yeah, beyond that, it was my only other really big critique, or what I found, what I didn't particularly care for. I love Aquafina. I love the stuff that she's been in. She was great in Ocean's 8. Nora from Queens was a great short run series. She's very funny. She's very gifted. She's funny as hell in Crazy Rich Asians. But her slapstick, street smart way of speaking kept taking me out of the world. It felt like it was a different. Everything needed to be that, or she needed to be part of Kumandra. And it just Kumandra, rather, sorry. It felt a little disconnected to me.
So I'm going to jump in on that point, even though I usually like to start with the things I like, and I guess I'll do that. But that one, so that didn't bother me nearly as much as it usually does. And you guys know that I'm an accuracy slut, like, to my death. But because Raya and Namari did the same thing, just to a lesser extent. I mean, come on, Raya's dig about Miss Undercut. I mean, all of their their interaction was modern Western young adult teasing, joking, and sometimes even with modern references like the undercut.
Yep.
The Dragon Nerd line as
Dragon
well.
nerds. Yeah. So
yeah, absolutely.
Aquafina didn't bother me, in fact, at all. I did love. I can't remember somebody's review called her basically like I can't remember what they call it, a dragon on nitrous oxide. And yeah, it's a little hyper.
Dennis Hopper as a 25-year-old Asian American girl.
Blue Velvet Dragon. Anyway,
I'd watch that.
I would watch that as well. So, like everybody else here, the animation and the art is gorgeous. This Disney's move into sort of Pixar-like 3D or CGI animation for characters they nailed it this time. Absolutely nailed it. The voice acting was outstanding, particularly, as Byron has said, Kelly Marie Tran and Gemma Chan. Like Greg said, this is literally, almost literally a paint by numbers Disney beat. Dad's gonna, buy it, although in this case
Dead
it's
parent,
not permanent.
check.
Yeah. Youngster out, trying to find themselves and falling into, in this case, sort of anger and depression, as opposed to, just denial, like in The Lion King. But same. It's literally the same thing. And having said that, there are moments in here between when Kelly Tran reacts to something. We're spoiling this. Reacts to Sisu's death. Luani Lau, welcome to the show. We're spoiling the heck out of Raya and the Last Dragon. So if you don't want to have it spoiled, I suggest you find another channel to watch. But that's what we're doing here on our Full Fat Spoiler Chat this week. Gemma Chan, found her resurrected, and even the fact that Gemma Chan doesn't say anything, just the sounds that the character is making as she's trying to choke back tears, I almost cried. I knew knew this was coming, knew how manipulative it was, and and that's 100% because of those voice actresses. And that's, of course, Benedict Wong and Sandra Oh, and they're all just so damn good in this thing. I really liked Little Noi. I thought that Noi was this close to being the next Baby Yoda. Yeah, I don't know. But about the story, I really like the fact that they let female characters, young women, whether they're Asian or whatever they are, be the protagonist, the antagonist, have a very complex relationship. There's an awful lot implied in some of those looks, which is about as far as Disney's ever going to go. But
Yeah.
and then allow them to fight violently. That last fight between Raya and Namari is to the death. They wanted to kill each other.
Yes.
Like 100%. It's what nobody was beating around the bush. Matthias, welcome to the show. And again, we're spoiling the heck out of Raya and the Last Dragon. So if you don't want to have it spoiled, I would suggest you find another thing to watch.
That was, Roddy, to your point, she was pure rage.
Yep.
There was no calculation, there's no strategy, it's just, I am so mad, I'm going to swing this sword until one of us is dead.
Yep.
Yeah, I love the fact that it was like the final solution was, let's hug it out. Because
yeah. I mean, ultimately, that's what it turned out to be. I think that the final thing that stopped Raya was clearly, and they've played this again, but her reflection in the sword and remembering then, trying to figure out who she is and what Sisu wanted her to be, and realizing that a killer isn't really what she is. let's see, what other things that I really liked. I loved the pan Southeast Asian aspect of it. The fact that they pulled from so many Southeast Asian areas. I really enjoyed that. You know, the Indonesian shadow puppets that make up almost the entire exposition dump there at the beginning, and then it comes back when when Namari's mother, Virana, Virana, um, is talking to the children in the Fang tribe, and there's a shadow puppet thing going on behind them, um, and that perfect. The weapons, you know, the Chris that Raya uses is, you know, all over Indonesia. Every particular ethnic group in Indonesia uses some variation of that blade.
Yes, I would. We were talking about in pre-show, but it reminded me of a similar style blade used in a very lesser known style called Kalari Piatu, which is, you know, it's also Southeast Asian, and it's considered by many to be the first martial arts style. So it's something interesting to look into.
So I'm actually, several of us on here probably are old enough that you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. When they did the close up of where of the guard on the sword, you know, you've got the sort of
Yep.
almost like Chris type pattern with the two snake heads coming together. My first thought was doom.
Also, Doom. Have you seen these snakes? Yeah. Okay. Good point.
What is the riddle of steel?
Speaking of Conan, the one thing I really liked about this movie was the idea of every time she went to a new place, she would gather allies and family.
Yes.
And that sort of I was like, what does this remind me of that I like? And I know it's from a bunch of movies, but the one that struck out to me the most was Conan the Destroyer. You remember how Conan at one point was gathering allies in the beginning?
In a post-apocalyptic wasteland.
Well, no, it's not. It's Conan's world. It's the Hyborian Age. But if Grace Jones was in this movie. Anyway, IDKK, welcome to the show.
Hey.
Welcome back. And again, you were on the show on Tuesday, so you know that this is us spoiling the heck out of Raya and the Last Dragon. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you watch something else, unless you don't mind spoilers, in which case, hang around and ask us questions. We'd love to answer them. Greg?
Can I throw out a broad topic for conversation here?
I'm about to finish up my didn't likes.
Okay.
So, but then yes, we'll do that. If it ties into theme or message, or if not, we'll get into it. So, didn't likes. I didn't like the fact that it was such a Disney young adult script that, you know, literally, like Greg said, you had a checkbox. Yep. And to Manny's point, the flip on how Namari did her second betrayal, well, it wasn't really a betrayal. She tried to, and then it all got screwed up. At the end, was different than what I was expected, but not enough so that I didn't go, yep, second betrayal. You know. Mm-hmm. So that, I guess, like, yeah, you know, you could have been. There's so much more about the building of the world and some of the character complexity that I wouldn't have minded if this wasn't a 1 hour and 48-minute movie, but was a 2 hour and 10-minute movie, if you added a little bit more complexity to the story.
Right.
It's Disney. It's a Disney animation.
I mean, ultimately, they're making it much more for an age demographic that none of us have been part of in a long time. We just hope that we will also like it and take our kids to see the movie when it's in the theater, buy the toys for our kids, etc., etc.
Yep.
Although there's, you know, not unlike Dragon nerds, there's a whole lot of Disney nerds, and I think everyone on this call qualifies.
Yeah, mostly. So the other thing that I didn't like, and this is one of my sort of, you know, plot element nitpicks, everybody, do you remember whether or not they specifically said the Druun don't like running water or standing water? They just don't like water.
Yep.
That you still like water.
So the minute Sisu gets the ability to make it rain, movie's over. Right? Am I wrong?
Everyone just take the Eagles to Mordor.
Exactly. Take the Eagles to them. That was such a shocking. It's like, wait a minute. They just don't like any kind of water. Just make it rain for weeks. People will deal with the flooding much more than they'll deal with being turned to stone.
Fair enough.
Now, granted, that wouldn't have necessarily turned anybody back or any, but at least it would have gotten rid of all of the Druun for the time being.
You don't want the hero's arc to end too soon.
Yeah, well, yeah, in that case, about halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
So that was the only really sort of jarring whoopsie that I saw in the whole thing. Otherwise, I liked it a lot. Because it was so predictable, I didn't love it. And you know what, Greg? Before I get into one of the other things, because it's kind of a tangent topic, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, so this is more just sort of something to throw out there, and it sort of ties in because you just brought up the Druun. What did everybody think about the Druun as the bad guys? I mean, it was a different take on a Disney sort of YA targeted villain. There's no Ursula, there's no Cruella, there's no Scar. There wasn't a clear cartoonish, caricaturish bad guy, bad girl. Even the ending where I think Manny said it when he was talking about kind of where's it going to go. It's a little bit of a twist. I thought her mom was going to come out and be a full-blown villainess and just be like, screw all of you, I'm taking over the entire all 5 lands, and just let her villain flag fly. And they didn't. They kind of hinted at it and reeled it back in and just left the Druun as just these squiggly antagonists.
Yeah. I think
about that.
Movie Bob's description of them is probably the best. He said, these things aren't the antagonists. They're evil weather. Yeah.
Honestly, it didn't bother me that much because they felt to me more like a manifestation of these ill feelings that were built up between the nations over the years. It took them coming and with the country coming together again. I keep forgetting the name. Kudama, is it Kudama?
Kumandra.
Oh, Kumandra coming back together again. That's what essentially pushed them back.
Well, how I feel about them? Well, one, they're designed very well. They're great looking creatures, monsters. But yeah, I never saw them as like the villain of the story. Again, this is a Disney movie, so once they talked about in the beginning, like this was one time, one land, and then broken up into 5 parts, and then I was like, okay, I know this is going to be in my mind either a spiritual or a political movie, and in a way, it's sort of both. So I just saw it as not as the monsters, but as kind of the after effect of the situation that the humans in the story did to themselves. They will not unite, and because of that, these monsters have come into play.
Yeah, the hate took form.
Yeah, I agree. And in fact, Sisu almost says that specifically at one point. That maybe it's because nobody trusts anybody that these things are around. So yeah, I think that's the case. So that leads me into this thing that I was going to start talking about. In this movie would not exist at all if it wasn't for Avatar: The Last Airbender. And it steals so many. Well, it is inspired in so many ways by so many things in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the multiple kingdoms, all different aspects of one thing. Avatar, of course, elements. In here, it's the dragon. But even then, the dragons all sort of have different elements, although they're all kind of related to water in some fashion. It's so Avatar in its influence, in the fact that it's using Asian cultures as its background and how it's built. But unlike Avatar, like you pointed out, there's no Fire Lord Ozai in here. You know, there's no big bad. Um, the Druun are dangerous, and because they're attacking people, I guess you can call them evil, but there's no sense of evil to them, other than the fact that they're really frightening and dangerous. Um, they don't do anything specifically out of their way to show that they're cruel or mean, which is usually how we interpret evil. They are some sort of force of nature that's opposed to humans in
They're locusts.
They're locusts. They're big.
Yeah.
Well, they're actually little mini versions of Galactus Cloud locusts.
Don't you ever reference that movie ever again.
So does that free up the conflict between characters to be about each other and trust and lack of trust and betrayal and forgiveness, rather than let's all focus on beating Sauron?
Right.
Just pick a big bad.
Right. They have to beat their own ways of thinking.
Their own inner saboteur.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Way more. So, Greg, you're leading us right into themes, messages, and so on. So, let's jump right into that. Before we do, Aaron Medina, welcome to the show. Aaron says, I like the Tom and Jerry movie. We haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. And it's not up on the docket for any of our spoiler chats. So, Greg could comment on that or write a review if you wanted to.
If you want to see us to spoil it for you, please leave it in the comments below. If there's enough interest, maybe we'll do it.
Right. I mean, we've got our docket scheduled out until the end of May, but there's always room to move things around.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we're masochistic enough to do that.
Now, have you seen it, Byron?
I've seen enough of it.
Okay, all right. I'm just saying, hold off.
So Rodney, real quick before you go into that, I had, when I was watching Raya, the Druun were like, these guys remind me of something. What is this design? This black roiling cloud with purple lightning, and I just realized they are the Dredge from Titan AE.
Oh wow, that is
almost right down to the same word, the same name.
Wow. I was going to go with the alien invaders from Edge of Tomorrow.
I was going to go with Hexus from Fern Gully myself.
Wow.
So apparently these guys are just an amalgam of a lot of stuff. Titan AE, great movie if you haven't seen that one.
Yeah. So again, let's do another little aside because you brought up that piece of animation. Again, this is credit 100% to Movie Bob because he came up with this and I didn't realize this. The last time Disney tried making non-musical animated action-adventure movies was Atlantis the Lost Empire and Treasure Planet. Both of which, while I know people who are absolutely dedicated to those movies, were financial bombs.
Yep.
Wasn't The Black Cauldron also a non-musical?
Well, he said last time, not the only time.
Okay.
Because those both came out.
That goes back up to.
They were pretty close to each other. Huh?
Yeah. And that's a good point. It's nice to see that they succeeded, but I think they succeeded in a lot of cases because they learned a ton of stuff from Avatar. And if that's who you're going to learn from, that's a good teacher.
There you go.
I did actually enjoy, going on the whole Avatar aspect of it. The fact that you had, this caste system with the nations, you have the one nation that's doing better than all the others.
Yep.
And then the other ones who are, on varying levels of prosperity.
Good point. It's a good point. That may have been a product of geography or whatever. Looked like it was a pretty warm, wet, wonderful environment in Heart, where you could pretty much grow anything. So anyway, themes and messages. What do you think the overriding theme was to this? What message was it trying to get out? What was the tone of the whole movie? if it had consistent any of those, and how well did it do with any of those? And we've touched on some of this before. So, Manny, what do you think about that particular aspect of the film?
Themes. Well, I, I know we talked a little bit before about the idea of forgiveness and everything. But this is also a very spiritual film. I mean, what makes it interesting is that unlike some forgiveness stories, and I tend to not like them too much because they tend to be very like cheery and everything's going to work out well in the end, and I hate those. But in a sense that her Raya, her move to try to forgive Namari came from the gods or the god, the dragon. You know, so it makes you think like if is this a spiritual thing? Like if God's telling you that there can be peace, would you do so? And it is, I don't know, it's a tough one. I'm still trying to break it down in my head about like the messages. I think it's maybe could be because of my lack of understanding, maybe Eastern philosophy or religion. Maybe understanding that will help me know the movie's messages better. But I have to admit, when it comes to I mean, the general stuff like the action and nations getting back together, yeah, those are great themes. You know, we all want to be unified and work to make humanity better. But some of the deeper spiritual stuff, I'm still trying to pick apart my head.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point. I wouldn't think of it that way because I'm not spiritual, um, but your point about Eastern philosophy, this movie doesn't have it. It is much more of a sort of a Western look at philosophy funneled through Eastern mythology, but Eastern philosophy almost entirely doesn't have evil per se as a concept. There's bad, there's good actions and bad
Yes.
actions, but they both have to exist. There's light and there's dark, but they both have to exist. The concept of evil, like in Indian, ancient Indian mythology, the Rakshasa, the demons, which fight against the gods, aren't evil. They're the opposites of the gods, but they also have to be there. Um, so yeah, so in that sense, I think the spirituality, I think it is very much a spiritual movie in a Western style of spirituality. Um, but sorry, you got me thinking about that. So, other thoughts? Any other thoughts about message or tone or anything like that? Manny?
Oh no, that's it for now. I'll add more once I still
Okay.
think it through.
So Byron, same question. Was there an
Yeah.
overriding theme? How'd they pull it off? Messages, tone, etc.
Yeah, I did touch upon the whole idea of forgiveness, but I mean, like as I was going on the journey of this film, I saw it more as like a message of like what hate can do to you, because that was a big part of Raya's early arc. Was that all she had left was her hate after losing her home, after losing everything she ever knew, and to go against your point, Rodney, about the use of Eastern philosophy. I think that was told more through the narrative by there not being a true antagonist, and not like a true evil foil. Like the philosophy, the philosophy is like peppered throughout the world to the point where like you almost don't notice it.
Okay, I'll buy that. I think most of the bad actions were mostly accidents.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's what made it.
Good intention, bad result.
yeah.
Yes, that's what made it feel so organic for me.
Okay. Greg.
Yeah, definitely echo everything Byron and Manny just said. There was I kind of picked up on elements of sort of environmentalism and being stewards of the earth. They didn't beat you over the head with it the way Wally did, but Wally was also a much better movie. Again, in my opinion, your mileage may vary. Um, that was a big piece. Obviously, the sort of the holding a grudge, holding hatred, what that does to you. Um, how negatively that impacts your life. I picked up on that. Um, Personally, I find a lot of times when I watch a movie for the first time, I don't pick up on a lot of that. Second time, I may zoom out and pick up on the themes, the some of the messages, the tease out some of the what are they getting at with this. Whereas on the first view, I tend to the plot, the characters, the action, etc. Um, Interestingly, though, again after the fact, when I read a review a day or two after I watched it that was talking specifically about the idea of forgiveness, they made I can't remember where the review was from, doesn't really matter, but the reviewer made the point that it wasn't just sort of the fairly trite idea of, oh, well, Rodney did me wrong 10 years ago and I've had a grudge, but now everything's okay. I forgive you, Rodney. It was that you can't get to that point until you forgive yourself, until you get through your own shit, pardon my French. Um, and as somebody who's struggled with depression and struggled with that inner saboteur and that negative voice, that just hit me like a ton of bricks, because that's really the ability to forgive yourself and to love yourself, even after people have done bad things to you or betrayed you, is that's major stuff. That's big stuff.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything. I think the theme, the theme is trust, trust, trust. You got to trust people. If you don't trust people, horrible things will happen. Druun will come and turn you into stone. Blah 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 blah. Your land will be fractured. I mean, that word is used so many times in this movie that it's literally a blunt hammer hitting you over the head with theme,
Yeah.
theme, theme. The message is forgiveness. Um, that you have to forgive, as Greg said, yourself before you can start forgiving people who have done you wrong, before you can start trusting them again. Um, and I also think that that's kind of pretty ham-fisted, but less so than the whole trust theme. Which, and here's an observation that I think you all want to respond to. Does that make this the Joe Biden of Disney movies? Seriously, Greg, you were talking about the idea of being able to forgive yourself. The Eastern philosophy of there are only good actions and bad actions, and so therefore, if you can overcome the bad actions, you can forgive the person who did them. I'm not at that point. Um, I'm not at that point politically here in the United States to accept that message that this movie is putting out. Am I wrong for that? Um, is this movie saying that we need to spiritually move past this hatred of each other point that we're here in the United States? Or is that just me, because I'm so in tune with all this stuff, keying into it? So let's bring it right to what happened in Atlanta. Do we not hate this guy who murdered 8 people, 6 of them Asian American women?
I mean, I think it's hard to generalize something like that, especially for a Disney movie and something that's clearly aimed at sort of the tween market, if you will. There are elements of that, but I don't think it's trying to secretly sneak in. There's good people on both sides. I didn't get that takeaway, just to use that obvious analogy.
Uh,
Um,
um,
I don't think Disney's subtle enough or willing to be that political. There's aspects of it. I mean, again, using Wally, that was clearly a message of consumption, overconsumption, not being a steward of the earth that we have and the resources we have. That was about as blunt a political message as any Disney movie I can think of. I don't think this, if Wally is here, Raya is, somewhere just off camera. But I did definitely pick up on that kind of, in the broadest sense, fractured land. Everyone's off in their own camps. No one's willing to, talk to the other camp and see where they're coming from. And while I completely agree with that conceptually, philosophically, Rodney, coming back to your point, yeah, I'm not. Uh, I don't think you can Eastern philosophy the last 4 years in America. That was
Mm.
evil. That wasn't just bad actions. That was evil.
Yeah.
Byron, you're chomping at the bit.
Chomping at the
Yep.
bit. Sorry.
Yeah, no. To piggyback off of both your points, yeah, yeah, it did feel a bit ham-fisted, and I think the thing that kind of hit home for me was just thinking about how polarizing the views were. Like, it's like either you trust them or you don't trust them. It's just like it would have been nice if there would have been something sort where it's like Sisu kind of learned maybe it's not entirely bad to be a little cautious.
Trust but
Trust but
verify.
verify.
Yes.
Who was that? Was that a Reagan?
Sadly, that was a
Reaganism?
Reaganism. Yeah.
But it
Rarely would
still
quote
holds
Ronald
true.
Reagan, but that has, that's, I think, to me, Byron, to your point, I mean, obviously, Sisu is a caricature. It's a very broad pastiche of characters. And
Optimism.
if she'd adopted a trust but verify attitude, the movie would have been 43 minutes long. Um, so, again, take it through the lens of this is a fun sort of tween skewing comedy action movie from Disney. It's not, Jim Jarmusch talking about, heavy themes. It's not Terrence Malick.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, go on, Byron.
Raya
And I think
Raya and the Ghost Dog.
I would also watch that.
Same here.
yes, I would too. I mean, I guess the reason that bugs me so much is because I saw some of myself in Sisu, where it's just like a very younger version of myself was kind of just like he doesn't seem half bad. I mean, yeah, he might be a little bullyish, but he's a good guy for the most part. And then meanwhile, they're emasculating me behind my back. But
Yep. I because trust from a position of strength. That's realistically, that's the only way. Ren Will, welcome to the show. And at this point, you're probably pretty clear because you've been on for a while that we're spoiling Raya and the Last Dragon. So I guess my warning would be late, but welcome. Any wrap up thoughts on theme or message before we tie this all up?
Pressure, the pressure.
That's a question. You don't have to have any.
I'm trying to think any. Something light to end this. Did anyone else get hungry at the end of this at the end of this movie? Because every time they talk about adding spices and things.
oh
Oh,
yes,
oh,
except for anything involving shrimp because I hate shrimp.
Yeah.
I wanted to go on a shrimp boat and have some
Have
hargal.
my share.
Yeah, have a nice
I
bowl of shrimp congee.
I know Byron wasn't there, but I would love to all of us to go to that ramen restaurant in Queens. Oh, that was
Maybe next year.
That's an
yeah.
internal discussion, folks. The last time we were at New York Comic Con I wish I could remember the place so we could plug it. It's in Flushing, Queens.
Really, all you need to know is good ramen with friends, and there was sake.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Again, I'm sort of with Byron. I'm not a big shrimp fan, but any of the other stuff in there, oh God, yes, please. Did I want a banh mi right now? Yeah, kinda. Anything.
I'm hungry now.
Yeah. But anyway, pad thai. Sorry, folks. We're drooling and we're wrapping up. So, let's go around the other way this time. We'll start with Greg. Greg, recommendation, yes or no? And you don't have to give it a numerical ranking, but general sense of, give me a sense of place.
Liked it, didn't love it. Animation was beautiful. Loved the scenery. Loved the attention to detail. The story was a bit lackluster. It was more about the setting and the accuracy of all the settings and less about the characters. Um, but as modern Disney movies go, it was well made. It was fun to watch. I'm sure when it hits free, actually, I suppose I own it now since I bought it on the premiere. So I'll watch it again.
Cool, Byron.
A lot of Greg's sentiments. Like had fun. I enjoyed damn near everything about it. Wasn't perfect, but it's a great watch with the family.
Good point. Manny.
There are many Disney movies that are great, but I don't rewatch them. This one I would rewatch. This and Incredibles I would rewatch.
Yep. That's another influence I didn't even get into. Clearly, this was influenced by the animation of The Incredibles. Um, just, you know,
especially the action scenes.
yeah. Disney's animation studio is learning an awful lot from the people it bought, and the things that it wish it had made. Same as everybody, particularly Greg. I like this a lot. I did not love it. Um, it is absolutely something that can be watched again. Um, and I would definitely recommend it for people. I think Byron has a great point. It is a very good movie for family, because family is very, very important into this. All kinds of family, the family that Raya assembles, and of course her own family, Sisu's family, etc. So yeah, I watch it, folks. It's fun. It's a good point. It is a fun ride, and it is just beautiful. And again, super kudos, big applause to all the voice acting cast, including Alan Tudyk, whose voice work basically, turned out to be grunts and.
So this to me just my kind of my final thought on this. Obviously, I'm Caucasian, but this is very clear evidence that, or not evidence, a very clear example of how representation matters. It's
Absolutely.
not just set in Asia like so many animes are. It's not just a couple of Asian characters filling out the cast. It's an all Asian cast. It's an all Asian, or specifically Southeast Asian setting. It's all Asian actors from America, from Canada, from their respective countries. Um,
Except Tudyk.
it's not it, and I make this joke all the time, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. Scarlett Johansson was nowhere to be found.
Good point. All right. On that note, and not that we don't love Scarlett Johansson, we just don't love her when she's ripping off Asian properties. Anyway, on that note, we're going to wrap it up here, folks. Let's go around again. Greg, give us a goodbye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for losing my ability to speak coherently. Thank you for tuning in this evening. I always enjoy being able to dive into the deep dive spoiler chats.
Byron.
Hey, everybody have a great night. Byron McNeil signing out. Make sure to tip your bartender.
Good point. Manny.
Thank you all for watching. Please check out that link that we put up there in the beginning. And yeah, everyone, please be safe.
And we'll put those links in other comments on some of the stuff. I know that the active live chat you can't comment on once this is done, so we'll put it in a comment below the actual saved version when it loads up to YouTube. So, and the same thing for Rodney Brown. Thank you all for joining us. Wonderful discussions. Guys, thanks for joining on the show tonight. It was really good. It was a good discussion. And sadly, particularly timely. Folks, do check out those links, and also please stay safe in all sorts of ways. Particularly if you're of Asian background, stay safe personally. Please keep your physical self safe, but also wash your hands, wear your mask, stay 6 feet away, get your vaccine as soon as you can. And we will see you either Tuesday night for Nerd Week Live, where we're talking about nerd news from the previous week. Already posting up some stuff in the group. There are things happening out there. Andrew Shute, welcome to the show. We're wrapping up. Sorry you missed everything. But if you want to see this, next week is, guess what? The Snyder Cut. Yeah. Da-da-da. Of course, it dropped today. Carve out 4 hours of your time, folks, if you want to see it, and join us then and chat all about, well, that'll be a big one.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. So thank you again, folks.